Hey YouTube, how's it going? My name's Jonathan, and in this video I'm going to be counting down 5 of the best phones you can get right now for under $200. When a lot of people think of a good phone, they'll immediately turn to the iPhone or the Galaxy S8 or the Google Pixel, and with that kind of mindset, it can be really easy to think that you have to spend close to $1,000 to get a really solid device. With that said though, there are a lot of phones right now that are incredibly cheap, but would have been considered high-end a couple years ago and are still very solid choices now. That's why in this video I'm highlighting some of my favorite phones, and the first one on this list is the Blu R1 Plus. Now this phone is an incredible deal. It sells for only $159, but it doesn't look or feel like a budget phone. It's got a 5.5-inch HD display protected by Corning's Gorilla Glass 3, an aluminum build that looks relatively high-end, and then also a pretty solid camera as well. The phone is a little big and bulky, but that's pretty understandable, especially given the fact it runs on a quad-core MediaTek processor and 3GB of RAM, and features 32GB of storage with a micro SD card expansion slot. And that's actually not even the best thing about this phone. The R1 Plus comes with an amazingly long-lasting battery that should get you over 10 hours of use on a single charge. Obviously this phone isn't going to be able to handle a lot of multitasking or serious gaming, but it's hard to argue with a handset that's this cheap and this capable. Now the next phone in this video is actually even cheaper. It's the $99 ZTE Zmax Pro, which offers a massive 6-inch screen and a solid battery life without compromising too much. The biggest trade-off about this phone is literally the size. It weighs a pretty hefty 6 ounces, and it's a phone that's going to be hard to wrap your hand around while you're using it. Having said that though, if you are okay with using a phablet, there's a lot to like here. The Zmax Pro is a bright 1920 by 1080 display, a fingerprint sensor on the back, a 1.5 GHz Snapdragon 617 processor that can handle some multitasking, and pretty close to a 10-hour battery life. While the camera isn't the very best, this phone is undoubtedly worth its price, and I would definitely recommend it. Now another really cheap phone to consider is the Moto E4, which you can get for $99 unlocked through Amazon Prime, or $129 without Prime. This is a 5-inch phone with a 720p screen, a Snapdragon 425 processor, 2GB of RAM, 16GB of storage, and an 8MP rear camera. You also get a really up-to-date version of Android. It ships with Android 7.1.1 Nougat, but unfortunately that means you're working with less than 8GB of available storage. Another big trade-off with this phone is the battery life. You'll be lucky to get 6.5 hours of use out of this phone on a single charge, and while I normally like Motorola's phones and I wouldn't call this a bad choice, you should just know what you're getting if you do choose the E4. A phone with decent processing power, but a very subpar battery. Now if you are willing to spend a little more, the Huawei Honor 5X is one of the best choices around right now. This is a phone with a premium metal body, a 1080p screen, a fast fingerprint sensor, nice cameras, and a battery that lasts all day. Although it sells for only $200, you'd be forgiven for thinking it was a $300 to $400 device. Everything about this phone's hardware is really solid. The screen is bright and vibrant, the phone features not one but 2 micro SD card slots, and the speakers are surprisingly loud. The only weird thing about this phone is the software. It runs Android, but it doesn't look like stock Android at all. You're getting a lot of Huawei's apps pre-installed, and then the phone also runs Huawei's EMUI 3.1 software over Android 5.1.1 Lollipop. This isn't a big deal, but it is something you should take note of since the unnecessary software is the only main drawback in what's otherwise an amazing budget phone. Now the final phone in this video is the Moto G5 Plus, which is slightly more expensive again, but it seriously could be the best budget phone available now. The G5 Plus is available in 2 versions, a $229 version with 32GB of storage and 2GB of RAM, and this model is available for less than $200 for Amazon Prime customers, so it technically meets the sub $200 standard, and then there's also a more expensive $299 version with 4GB of RAM and 64GB of storage. Whichever configuration you do go for, you'll be getting a metal chassis, a 5.2-inch Full HD display, a great fingerprint sensor, and a Qualcomm Snapdragon 625 processor. What's great about this phone is that it can handle multitasking and slightly more intense apps without sacrificing on battery life. This phone gets over 11 hours of use easily, which is good as a lot of high-end Android phones. If you're an Amazon Prime customer or you are willing to pay just a little bit more, the Moto G5 Plus is definitely for you. But with that said, that pretty much wraps it up for this video. If you know of any other really amazing budget handsets, let me know in the comments section down below, and I'll plan on releasing an update to this video some point in the future. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it and you thought it was helpful, and with that said, I will see you next time.